Welcome, everyone. Today is Tuesday, October the 11th, 2022. And welcome to the Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call. I will be filling in for Vesta today. My name is Fabian Williams. I am a Senior PM on the Microsoft Graph Customer and Partner Experiences team. Today, we have a fantastic lineup of speakers, presenters, here to talk to you about a variety of things. We have Cam and Samriti on Introduction to the Records Management API on Microsoft Graph. And we have welcome again Gary Trinder to talk to you about the command bot for Microsoft Teams using the Teams Toolkit for VS Code. But before we get to that, as you know, this is a weekly call and we have, it's a community call, so we have people joining all the time. We're going to start off with a few updates from the last time we met related to the Microsoft Graph 365 platform, news that you can use and ways that you can work within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And we are going to attend a group picture time in together mode for those who would like to participate. I am going to go ahead and try that yet again. We meet weekly on Tuesdays for the platform call. As new people join, we want to make sure that you have access to all of the resources and samples that are available to you. There are 2 YouTube channels that you can subscribe to and consume videos, which feature some things that we're doing here today, samples, demos, and so on and so forth. There's the Microsoft 365 developer videos, which is usually people from the internal Microsoft, the PM team, the dev advocates team, the DevRel team, PM owners, PM managers that will come and talk about the various M365 news that they have to provide and updates that they have to provide. And there's also, like today, the Microsoft 365 community videos, which is at AKMS M365 videos, which are the calls that we have here today, along with others that we have in terms of monthly and bi-weekly as well. Besides the videos, I know a lot of people consume videos. I'm a visual person myself. I love videos. That's basically the way that I learn. We have complementary to that a ton of open source resources on Microsoft GitHub that are available to you. To consume. This basically a place you go, you pull down the code, clone a repo, learn by doing, and get up and running, from zero to hero in relatively a quick succession. However, GitHub can be, overwhelming. There's a ton of stuff there under different outlets. So what we have done to make that a little bit easier for you is to create sample galleries where you can find things relative to the SPFX, to Teams, to Graph, Power Platform, all of those things in bite-sized chunks in samples that you can basically search for and consume. If you cannot remember or don't want to retain all of this information in terms of all of these little sublinks, if you go to AKMS/M365/community, you can find all of the information that I've just mentioned there in one spot for you. Besides, those resources and those videos on YouTube, we do have calls like you're attending here today, the Microsoft 365 Developer Community Call, which occurs weekly on Tuesday, and the link is there for you to basically, join. And besides this call, we have monthly calls for the adaptive cards, the Microsoft Identity Platform, Office Add-ins, and Power Platform. And we have bi-weekly, and they alternate. It's either the M365 Power Platform community or the Viva Connections and SharePoint framework that rotates bi-weekly. Again, you can download all of these recurrent invites from AKMS M365/calls. We want to ensure that you are successful along your journey in Microsoft 365, and there are a couple different outlets for that. One, a tenant is there for you to use and it's available for you free and as long as you continue to use it, it'll continue to renew. You can get this free E5 developer tenant and other assets. So it's full with either communications in Teams, email messages, a lot of content, so you don't have to put dummy content inside there, which makes the developer experience much better than you trying to put dummy data, lorem ipsum. You can get that at AKMS M365 Dev Program, and complementary to that, so that you have a tenant that you can use and have meaningful information for it. We have a ton of stuff on the Learn channel, which is M365 Dev/Learn, where you can actually get curated information, training videos that are free to help you along that journey as well. We also have 2 podcasts that I'd like to highlight as well. Jeremy Thick and Paul Schaefer have the M365 Dev podcast, where they usually have either people from the product team or MVP, mainly people from the product team, but also people from the DevRel and also the Dev Advocates on the program. And weekly, you have Vesa and Waldeck that have the PNP Weekly podcast. And there they have a mixture of either platform folks internal to Microsoft or also MVPs there to share what they're working on and all of the new stuff that is coming up in Microsoft 365. Yeah, leaping back into samples, definitely want to thank people for all of the contributions that they do. We're now up to 1,100 samples inside the sample gallery, which is at AKMS M365/samples. We can find a ton of information, a ton of sample codes around Microsoft Teams, Azure, Power Apps, Power Automate, SharePoint, my own Microsoft Graph Toolkit as well. So I want to ensure that everyone has the resources that they have in order to be successful based on all of the, the years of, experience that you have from the people within the community here at large. And I'm going to turn it over to David to talk about the Sharing is Caring initiative.
Excellent. Thank you, Fabian. Well, friends, all those 1,100 plus samples, they didn't happen by mistake or accident or just by Microsoft. In fact, they were there because of amazing contributors like yourself. And you may say, how can I do that? Well, it may be a little intimidating to contribute to some of the areas of the community, things like GitHub and terms like pull request and forking. What does all that do? Well, we are here to help you understand what it is. The Sharing is Caring program is a safe space opportunity for you to get more involved in the community by working alongside others and learning together. So in these sessions, we will show you how to do things like publish a pull request, submit a pull request, set up your developer workstation, or use those samples with NVM. And they are safe space. So that means that you do not have to worry about it being recorded. You are open to ask any and all questions. You'll collaborate with members of Microsoft. You'll work with MVPs and other like-minded community passionate contributors like yourself. And we want to enable you and empower you as much as we possibly can. These sessions are getting scheduled out for the rest of the year. They've been a little slow going with the Power Platform Conference and some other changes we've been making, but we've got Power Pages coming soon. We're also starting to create some videos for them. Because that way you can kind of see some of it on demand and then join maybe some office hours to ask questions that are more definitive or granular or specific. So again, we offer these up to everyone in the community. You're more than welcome. We try to make times that are available to all those. We are a global community, and so it's not Redmond Standard Time or anything like that. We want to make sure that it's scheduled for times that are good for all of you. So keep an eye out at ak.ms/sharing is caring for more additional times coming soon. Fabian, back to you.
Thank you, David. In addition to the Sharing is Caring initiative, one of the things that I'm actually, I was a part of when they were actually building this out is the Ad Camp. So the Dev Advocates team have information, have solutions that are there for you to build. If you're an ISV, building solutions where there's a monetization towards Microsoft Teams. There's two ways of learning for this one. There's an asynchronous learning where you can actually go to AKMS/AppCamp and you can get all of the content. The beauty of this is that, and I've heard Bob German mention this so many times that I think I have it by memory right now, but oftentimes you'll see solutions that take you from zero all the way to get into a solution. But oftentimes people are bringing their own solutions to the table, or they already have something built. So this is quite unique in the way it operates in terms of you can bring your own app and then get that to work within a Microsoft 365 in a Microsoft Teams environment towards a monetization target. And on October the 20th, just recently, between 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific, there will actually be an event. I think it is between Rabia and Bob, where they'll be doing an online event for that 1 hour at ak.ms/Teams AppCamp. Make sure to check that out. Tomorrow begins Microsoft Ignite, and we're actually talking prior to this call here today, where there'll be this is an event where it's going to be both virtual and also in person. I've seen a ton of people coming in across, I see a bunch of airport shots of people saying that they're arriving in Seattle, but there are also a few spotlight events. I know there's Paul had mentioned one in the UK. I know there's some in Singapore, but this is a great opportunity for people to, no matter where you are in the world, to either attend virtually, being as inclusive as possible, but also getting back to what we were talking about before as well, in-person events. We can actually meet people, have a conversation, attend a session, network, all of the things that we used to do, pre-pandemic. So this starts tomorrow. Hope to see a lot of people inside the virtual sessions because I myself will not be there. But I'll be attending and hosting a couple of sessions myself. In terms of the news that you can use, there's a couple that I'd like to highlight. So the besides the app camp, which is in the middle, which I talked about before, there's a beginner crash course to build apps in Microsoft Teams in the Toolkit. And there's also link unfurling that went into public preview for Microsoft Outlook. At the very top left, right here, you can actually see a couple of the AKMS links to take you to things about Viva, Microsoft Teams, and also the SharePoint blog. And we are at the time where I will actually try the optional picture time. So I am already on camera. I'm going to stop sharing here. And I am going to present I'm going to go to together mode first and then share my screen. So let's go to together mode. Let's get 50 people inside here. Let me go ahead and share this screen. Share this one right here, yonder. There we go. And let me go ahead now and grab my trusty little Camtasia. And in a few minutes, let's get 50 people inside here. And let's start the hand waving. Let me get at least 5 or 6 seconds off that. And then we will go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Let me go ahead and minimize this. And let me go ahead and stop sharing and present back inside Teams. So at this point in time, we're going to jump into our demos, the real stars of the show here today. The first demo is going to be Sigrati and Cameron talking about introduction to records management API on the Microsoft Graph.
Yep, if you want to stop presenting, I will go ahead and share out my screen.
All righty. Thank you, Cam.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. So my name is Cameron Parker. I am a product manager on the Microsoft Customer and Partner Experience team. I'm joined today by Samruddhi Seth, who is on the records management team. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about automating security, compliance, identity, and management with new Microsoft Graph APIs. And so this is specifically around the records management APIs that we'll be talking about today. All right, so just a little bit of the agenda. So overview of the APIs and their use cases. We'll do a little bit of demos, of course, and talk about licensing and monetization, demo environments and trials, and then kind of end with some links to some resources and things like that. So jumping right into it. So again, included APIs. So I mentioned SCIM earlier, right? So for SCIM automation, we're really talking about 3 different sets of APIs, records management being the one that we're talking about today, but there is also eDiscovery Premium as well as privacy. And so overview of the records management APIs and their use cases. So essentially these APIs exist to kind of help organizations manage that retention and deletion of data to meet their legal obligations and compliance regulations. And so kind of to quote, data lifecycle management is what helps you keep the data you need and delete what you don't. A couple sample use cases for the APIs that we have available. Again, these are currently in beta. And so right now, what you're looking at in terms of use cases is event-based retention. So, triggering based off of some sort of internal or external event, such as like an employee leaving the company. As well as label management when using a third-party tool. So automation around like creation, updates of labels and that kind of thing. So moving on, we're looking at a few of the sample queries via the API, what these would look like as far as like their raw HTTP request form. And so this particular one is for the events-based retention example. And so looking at this use case, right, got a few sample queries. So listing or enumerating those retention event types that you may have, retention event type being associated with a label, and then, using a retention event to trigger that event, right? So that some action can be performed based off of labels associated with that event type. And so looking to the documentation down here at the bottom, moving on to the other use case, we have label management. And so again, more of like a CRUD operations against labels, right? So, creating, enumerating labels, performing updates via that patch operation. You can delete as well. Again, a link to that documentation. All right, and so enough talking about it. So let's take a look at it. And for this, we're going to be using Postman. And so we recently, along with some of the other API sets, we were able to incorporate these into our official Microsoft Graph collection for Postman. And so for those of you who may not be familiar with Postman, this is a great API testing tool that allows you to craft HTTP queries and test out the APIs without having to write a whole bunch of code in order to do that. We provide specifically for Microsoft Graph, we do provide a collection that allows you to essentially have these pre-crafted queries so that you're not having to manually craft each and every query that you want to test out against the Microsoft Graph API. And so basically you can obtain this. It's in our documentation, which we'll share a link to a little bit later. But essentially you can fork this collection, bring it into your local Postman instance, and then set it up based off of an application registration. So of course, using Microsoft Graph, you're looking at that typical setup of creating an application registration in Azure, and then getting your information such as your tenant ID, client secret, and so forth. And that's what you're going to use in order to get that access token. And so you may have noticed that we're using the authorization code flow in this example. And so we are using delegated permissions here. And so we'll go ahead and get started by grabbing an access token that we'll need. All right, and you can see that completed successfully. And so now you may have noticed that, it kind of jumped straight into getting that token, even though we were using the authorization code flow. That's only because I've already previously consented to that permission. Otherwise, you would see that typical flow of having to sign in with an account and then consent to that permission had you not done so already. All right, and so with that, as you may have seen just a little bit ago, we have some variables and things like that we'll be using for the demo. So that's under the kind of root collection here and the variables that I have populated. You will find these APIs, the sample queries for these APIs, under the compliance folder under delegated, because again, we are using delegated permissions here. And so compliance folder, records management, and then you can see we have the two kind of use cases we talked a little bit about earlier. And so moving into, we'll go through this label management scenario. And so starting out, so we've already got our token. You can kind of see here how we've got, just the basic layout of Postman. And so you've got your GET call, and then you've got the actual HTTP query here that you would be executing to make that call. And so we'll go ahead and hit send there since we got our token. All right, and so you can see here we got a successful returns information about existing labels. I haven't created one yet, so this is, a label that I had previously created, but we'll go ahead and we'll get one created. So you can see a little bit different here. We're using a post call. We do have the body of this request populated with some information that we need to send in order to create that event. You may have noticed this kind of weird looking text here with the curly braces around it, and this is just one of those variables, right? So you can actually feed the variables into the request bodies, which is a really cool feature of Postman. So we'll go ahead and hit send there, and if everything goes well, so we get our 201 created response, and we can see that we've successfully created a label. And so what I'll do is I'll actually kind of jump over and show you. So if I go to, you can actually view this under data lifecycle management as well. If we jump to records management, we should be able to take a look at this. And so under our file plan, and it might have already refreshed, and yep. So we can see here, I believe it's this top one right here. They look similar just from the way that it's kind of viewed right now. Let's see. And so another note about this, you can see that there's under this test field, what we're actually doing here, as you'll see here in just a moment, is we're actually capturing the ID that's being returned in the body of the response and saving that into a variable so that we can use that in the future, which I'll show you here shortly. And so as you can see, what we did is we fed in a label into this next request, and this is just a GET request to basically get that label that we just created. And so again, you can do things like, enumerating the labels, creating, I'm getting details about just this one specific label that we just created. You can even go so far as to do an update. So we're doing a patch for that, again, using that ID that we just created. You can see a 204 no content, right? And we effectively updated the description for admins there, and you can see that actually updated. And then kind of jumping back to the portal real quick, if I selected the correct one, it looks like it was the second one actually. You'll see that if we do a refresh, and then if I select that label, you'll actually see that it was updated in the UI, right? So that's kind of a key takeaway. The reason for showing this is just that you can see that essentially we're performing actions similar to what you would be doing through the UI, and those actions are reflected when made through the API in the UI as well. All right. And so again, you could do delete if you wanted to for that label. We're not going to do that here today. But then again, we also have this other use case. So definitely recommend that you check this out if you're interested. So with that, we will go ahead and jump back to our slides. Quick word about licensing and monetization. So some operations require an E3 license, some require an E5. The kind of key takeaway there is the current APIs, they match the feature licensing, right? So the feature associated with that graph API operation that you're performing. Please do note that the future records management APIs, they may be metered based on consumption. So just wanted to make sure to call that out. You can learn more about licensing at aka.ms/DLM/licensing. Okay, quick word about permissions. So as these APIs require delegated permissions, I did want to make sure to call out that we have this concept of effective permissions with Microsoft Graph, right? And especially in the context of delegated permissions, it's that intersection of not only the Microsoft Graph permission that you've consented to, but also that backend permission, right, associated with essentially the service, right, that you're calling, right? So essentially the records management permissions in this case. So do want to be cognizant of that. And so if you'd like to learn more about the permissions required on the backend, you can check out this link here. All right. And so for demo environments and trials, so we do have a sandbox tenant available via the M365 developer program. Again, comes with 25 E5 licenses. It is 90 days. However, it does self-renew as long as you keep using that tenant for developer purposes. So you can check that out at aka.ms/M365 dev program. Not really meant for like load testing or anything of that nature. If you do want to do load testing, recommend kind of checking out an actual tenant with additional licenses and so forth. But this is a very useful tool for that, or I should say for just like kind of basic sandbox testing and that kind of thing. So for the Postman collections, you have aka.ms/graph Postman. That was the Postman collection that we were going through earlier. So again, if you are interested in taking a look at that, please do check out that link. All right, now on the roadmap, we do have application permissions as well as file plan descriptors. So just wanted to call that out. All right, and then so for some additional resources about this, definitely recommend checking out aka.ms/DLM/API. Learning more about events-based retention that we talked a little bit about earlier. We have a link here for that, and certainly encourage you to leave feedback. That can be done via aka.ms/DLM/feedback. And with that, Fabian, I will turn it back over to you.
Cam, do you have time for some questions, or do you want to do them in the chat?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have a chance to take a look at the chat, so we can go ahead and it's however you'd like to. If we have time, we could certainly take.
Yeah, otherwise
we can.
Yeah, we have like 5 minutes or so that we can go. There's a question from Aravind asking, is there an API or UI for end users to see which documents are about to expire through retention label? That kicks us off.
Yeah, sorry, Sam, would you like to?
Yeah, I was just, okay, first thing, hi everyone, and great to see this platform. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share these great APIs with everyone. So glad to be here. All right, and then coming to the question, and yeah, thanks Cameron for this amazing presentation. Loved it totally, of course. Yeah, and coming to the question right now, I don't think we have this, but of course it's a great question. I think it's a great finding for us to see if we can accommodate in the roadmap. We do need feedback. That's what we are here for. We want to see what your user experience is, what you think is the missing piece, and we want to deliver the best right there. So yeah, we don't have this right at the moment.
All right. Is anyone? Thank you, Amrita, for that response to the question. I think that's the only. I think there were a few comments, but that was the only one question that I see called out. Did anyone else have? Let me see. New comment down here.
Yeah, and so one thing I did want to call out as well, just kind of let me jump back to the slides real quick. So going back to the permissions here, because in the demo, I believe I used the default for the demo. So I did want to call out the specific Microsoft Graph permission that you would be using, kind of in addition to those backend permissions I was referring to. And so that would be the records management .reader.rewrite .all permission. So again, just wanted to mention that. But yeah, so with that, Fabian, thank you. Turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks very much, Cam. Thank you also, Samarita. I'm going to go ahead now and invite Gary to share your screen and take it away with your demo around the command bot. Gary?
Hi, Fabian. Hopefully you can hear me all good.
I can hear you well.
Okay, so let's share my, I'll share my slides first. Perfect. Lots of thumbs up. Fantastic. Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So this session is going to be build your first command bot using Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. Just to introduce myself, my name is Gary Trinder. I'm a senior cloud developer advocate at Microsoft, and I'm focused on Microsoft 365. Lots of links in this slide if you want to get in touch with me with any questions after this session, or just check out the things that I've been doing and sharing. Loads of links on there. Please do check them out. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to just get in touch with me. I'll do everything that I can to help you out. Okay. Just a quick agenda. So first, I'm going to go through what's a command bot. I'm going to cover quickly Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code for those who don't know what it is. I'm going to step through then creating this first project. Quick overview of what has been created for that project, running a bot for the first time, so we're going to see it in action. And then I'm going to go back through the code and explain how it works in the way that it does, and also then show you how you can implement new commands before we wrap up with a summary and some resources for you to basically get started building bots using the Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. And I'd really love to know what you build after this. So let's start with what is a command bot. So a command bot is something that is useful to repeat repetitive commands through a conversational interface. So let's say you just want to go into Teams, ask a bot to, send an email to your boss. You can instruct that bot through a command and run some logic. That is as simple as I could probably put it. There'll be lots of different use cases, but that is essentially it. You have a bot with several commands that you can invoke and then get a response. We're going to build this, going through this session today, using Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. So for those who are not aware of Teams Toolkit Visual Studio Code is an extension that you can install for the marketplace, which enables you to create new projects really quickly for Microsoft Teams apps. It sets up debug and also has lots of features in there for publishing that app as well to your store and also to Azure. There's also a Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio, just to make you aware. So if you're a .NET developer, that's something that might interest you. I'm not going to cover it today, but we'll cover it in other sessions. So for today, we're going to be focused on JavaScript and TypeScript as the technology that we're going to use. You'll be glad to know that is the end of the slides, really, for now. We're going to jump into Visual Studio Code, and I'm actually going to show you things running. So let's begin. So like I mentioned, we're going to use Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. Quick way of installing that, we can go to the extensions pane in Visual Studio Code. We can simply look for Teams Toolkit. We'll return in the results. You can click install. That's it. It'll install in a matter of seconds. When it has installed, you'll get the Teams icon in the sidebar. Click that. You can open the Teams Toolkit, and you're going to get the options immediately to create a new project, because we're just in an empty Visual Studio Code window here. There's also some samples that you can take advantage of as well. So if you're looking for ideas, check out the samples and you can install those as well and run them. So let's create a new Teams app. We've got several capabilities that we can add to our app. So we've got bots, we've got tabs, we've got message extensions as well. So we're going to concentrate on the command bot for now. So let's select command bot. I mentioned we've got JavaScript and TypeScript support for the programming language that you want to use. I'm going to use TypeScript, and I'm just going to select a folder on my machine for where we're going to actually create this this project. So I'm going to give it a name, call it community call, and that has started the scaffolding of the project. And in fact, it's done. It's nice and quick. So let's just take a quick run over as to what's actually been created here. So let's go through the folders. So we've got an FX folder in here. There's some configuration files. So these are used by Teams Toolkit as part of some of the features that it uses to launch bots really quickly against your developer tenant. We've got a VS Code folder. So this contains debug profiles. So this enables us to basically use F5 in Visual Studio Code to launch our bot and open a web browser and test it out really quickly. And also the debug profiles, so you can actually put breakpoints in code as well and then follow that code execution, which is really, really useful. We have our bot folder, which is where our logic is held for the bot that we're going to create. I'll jump back into that for a second. We'll just skip to templates folder. So these templates folders it contains two types of templates. So one, we've got a template for our app manifest that we publish to Teams, and we've also got an Azure folder which provides us with templates, bicep templates that we can use to deploy and provision all the resources that are needed to have this running in the cloud and not running on our local machine. So Toolkit provides all of that for us, which is really, really great. Skip into the bot folder. So here we've got our source code. In here, we've got some command handlers, we've got some adaptive cards and some internal files where Toolkit has already set up things like configuring our bot and wiring up the app IDs, app passwords, handling all that complexity for us. What I'm going to do is we're going to jump and I'm going to show you the bot actually running, and then we'll come back and I'll jump into these individual files to just explain how the functionality that I show you is implemented in this project. So I'm just going to jump to a project that I've already created. Just quickly jump back. So here's one that I've already created. I've already hit F5. So when you hit F5, Teams Toolkit is going to do a number of activities for you. It's going to check and make sure that everything on your machine is good and valid. So you've got a supported Node version. You've got everything installed on your machine, like the NPM packages that are needed, as well as connecting to your Microsoft 365 tenant. So I'm going to show you that I've already connected to my Microsoft 365 tenant. If I look at the Teams Toolkit tab, so I've already signed in. It's telling me that side loading is enabled, which is something that we need to be enabled on the tenant. To basically launch our app and test it. So this is enabled by default if you're using a sandbox tenant from the developer program. If you're not, this might be something that you need to configure yourself. So it's a setting in the Teams admin center that you just need to go and switch. There might be a slight delay before that becomes enabled. But once that's been done, you don't have to redo that again for that tenant. So I've already signed in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the bot. We've got some profiles there for Chrome and Edge. I'm going to run this in Edge. So I can hit the run and debug button, or I can just hit F5 on my keyboard and it'll do the same thing. So let's run it. So this is going to run by quite quick, but what this is doing, Teams Toolkit, is it's checking all those prerequisites. It's like I said, it's checking for Node, it's checking our 365 account, it's checking for the NPM packages. It's also checking and installing ngrok as well, which is needed for tunneling. So you don't have to pre-install that. You don't have to do anything with ngrok. Teams Toolkit Visual Studio Code will install it for you and launch it as well in the background. So now this has launched. We've got Teams opened in the web browser, and we will get the app loading pane. So we've got different places where we can install this. We can install it into a team or a chat, or actually into a meeting as well. So if you want to have a bot that is available in a meeting for people to kind of make invoke commands in, then you can add this bot to those meetings. I'm just going to add it as a personal app at the moment, so it's just installed for my user. You can probably see there's some usage of it already, but this is what a command bot is. If you go to the text box, the bot provides certain commands. So out the box, we've got a hello world command, and we get this nice suggestion as well from the UI. So if you've got multiple commands, you'll have a nice list here, and as you're typing the different commands that have got available to you, it will provide you with the one that matches your message. And what I can do is I can just invoke this. I can just send the message to the bot. And in this example, when we send hello world, it will reply with an adaptive card, and also it will reply with the it replies with the text as well in there. With using adaptive cards, you've got the ability to add actions as well. So these are just buttons that go to URLs at the moment. But you can imagine if you want to invoke a command that maybe has a form, or you want to send some information somewhere. This is a use case of using a command bot. You're just invoking some functionality by sending the bot a message. So I'm going to quickly jump back to Visual Studio Code now, and let's take a look at the code to show you how this is all set up. So first, I'm going to go to the internal folder and go to the initialize file. Now, this is where our bot is defined. So like I mentioned, our bot has been set up for us by Teams Toolkit. It's gone away to the bot framework service. It's registered a bot in that service as well. It's pulled the ID and the password for us, and basically it injected that into this new object. What we've also got is further configuration. So there's a command property that allows you to include different handlers. So a handler would be a handler for a particular message that comes in. If we take a look at the hello world command handler, which has been created for us, we can see that there is a class, hello world command handler, which is in implementing an interface from Teams FX. And Teams FX is a SDK that's basically providing us with a layer of abstraction over the bot framework. It's making it easy for us to create new commands using this Teams FX class. So one of the things that this class allows us to do is it allows us to define the trigger patterns. So if there is a message sent to this bot that matches this string, it will run the handle command received function, and that will be where our logic will fire. So this trigger pattern actually it can accept a string, but it can also accept regex as well. So you can have a command that could be fired by different words at different times. So it can be really flexible. If we just take a quick look at the handle command received function, so we can see that we're logging out that the bot received a message. So we do actually get the message back if we take a look at that. So we can see the actual text that was sent to us and also matches as well. So let's say, for instance, I did hello world and a name at the end. We're able to pick out the different values that have been sent through on that command. So you could easily have a command that accepts a parameter and then use that within your logic. So the next thing that this bot does is that it's actually going to send an adaptive card back. And the way that it does that is that it can use this message builder from TeamsFX again. And we have a attach adaptive card method where we can pass in our hello world adaptive card and some data with it as well. So we have this variable here with a title and a body, and we're going to send that to our bot along with the adaptive card definition, which is held in this JSON file here. So we can see that we have placeholders for title and for body, and we've also got actions in there to open URLs in Teams. So there's various different actions that are available in adaptive cards. You can have execute for forms as well. But this example, it's just using open URL for the moment. So this might be great for, let's say, I don't know, a Q&A bot. You want to ask a question, you get a response, you have some buttons provided that take you to a documentation page. People can then find their answers from. So if we look at the implementation of these, so we've got our handler. Our handler knows that it is triggered by a particular pattern, in this case, hello world. One thing that we did see was we had suggestions. So when I went to the text box, so the compose box, it actually came up and said, "Oh, here are some suggested commands that you can use." So those are defined actually in the app manifest template. So if we go to templates, app packages, and manifest template.json. We have here a command list array, and in there is a commands array is where we can define our commands that are available. And so this list here, this array, is the list of commands that you want to be able to show the user of your bot quick examples of, what messages can you send and what functionality is going to be provided. So you can just simply add in new ones and new handlers. Just add in a title and a description. And then when that next gets uploaded to Teams, that will be available as a new suggestion. So if you're wanting to, let's say, implement new command, then the way that you would do that is you would update those two different locations in our source folder. So first we would come to initialize, we would add our new handler in here, something like this, and we would actually create a new class that implements from the TeamsFX bot command handler, and we'd add in the trigger patterns, add in the handle command received, and then that would be picked up, and that would be a new command that users would be able to use. So the way that Teams Toolkit has provided us with really the basics of how do we register new commands, how do we invoke commands, what the suggestions are available to users, and how do we send data back to the user is all handled quite nicely through this command handler and through the handle command received function, and using the attach adaptive card method to then send a nice adaptive card back. If we didn't want to send an adaptive card, we can also just send text. So we have something called the turn context, which is provided for us, and we can send an activity back which can just contain plain text. So we can actually keep sending messages as well. So as part of the functionality of this command, you could just have, single line messages and then provide an adaptive card as well for users to actually follow. Okay. So that really covers the basics of getting started with a command bot. So let me just quickly jump back to my slides. So I just wanted to really summarize kind of what I'd shown. So, command bots are a great way of being able to automate those repetitive tasks through that conversational interface. So, rather than having a button on a page, maybe something that's a bit more interactive, like a bot, that you can use as, maybe like your personal assistant to just say, bot, do a particular action. That's a great way of being able to implement that. And it's the starting point as well for, a Q&A bot, a more advanced conversational bot, adding cognitive services like Lewis as well, to really kind of enhance that. But at its basic implementation level, it's a user is inputting something that the bot is then reacting to with some certain logic, whether that is displaying information through an adaptive card or actually capturing information back as well. So showing you Teams Toolkit has provided the quickest way to get started developing certainly these command bots and just Teams apps in general. I showed you how quickly and easily it was to just create that initial project and then get that running as well using F5. And also that Teams FX is providing this layer of abstraction to simplify working with the bot framework. So you were able to just create a single handler and define the trigger pattern that would invoke the logic in that command, and then how that was wired up with the bot definition as well. And again, Teams Toolkit is kind of handling a lot of the complexities there, just making it really easy so you can focus on what your command needs to do. So resources, so there's plenty of resources on docs, so definitely check out Teams Toolkit overview. So whether you are interested in the Visual Studio Code extension or even the Visual Studio enhancement as well, then definitely check out that page. So everything is provided on there with some quick starts about creating a new Teams app. There's also more on Teams FX SDK, so that is on GitHub. Definitely check out the repository and the docs. There's lots of information down there and samples as well about how you can take this further, extra things that you can do with the command handlers. And finally, just want to say thank you very much. I think we jump into the questions. I can see Victor's already in there. There's lots of activity in there, so I don't know if there's anything that hasn't been answered. I'm just quickly jumping back through.
I think most of it's already answered. There's a couple more governance questions, like around how to manage these many bots, and there was one about moving from dev to prod. I think Victor is actually communicating some of the communicating answers to some of that, or at least give some suggestions.
Yeah, I think I found one question from Scott. Are there enterprise supported options not using ngrok? So I'm going to take that as you may be working for an organization that can't use ngrok. So at the moment, there isn't in the Visual Studio Code extension. It is very opinionated in that it uses ngrok. However, it is on the roadmap to use other tunneling services. So this is something that definitely the team are aware of and are actively working to provide an alternative. But at the moment, if using the Visual Studio Code version, it's tied to ngrok.
Gary, I think there's two other interesting questions. The first one I partially answered, but it was about where do you place the logic for your command bot? If you just don't want to show that card, but you want to have some business logic or whatever, where would you do that? And the second one is, do we require Azure App Services to run this? How's everything being set up essentially?
So I can answer the second one quite quickly. So one thing which I didn't actually mention was the implementation of that bot. So that project template uses Restify as part of its implementation, which means it will need an app service to run when you provision that and deploy it to Azure. So that will just need the like say a normal app service. In fact, in the bicep files, there's I think it uses one of the dev test SKUs to provision that app service for you. So that is something that you need. It doesn't use the Azure functions. You definitely need that app service. In terms of the logic, in terms of so where will the data save? So at out of the box, there's conversation history, which is saved in memory. That's something that when you move to production, you're going to need to add some persistent storage. The easiest way to do that is using Azure Cosmos DB or table storage to save that conversation data to. But at the moment, that bot is very much just it's running in memory, nothing's saved anywhere. So that's something that you would have to look into and implement yourself. However, saying that, Teams Toolkit does have a feature. So there's an add features wizard in there, which gives you options to stand up a SQL database and Azure functions as well in your project. So it's a bit more advanced from what I was going through today. It was very much a how do you get started. But if that's something that you're really interested in, then that's something that we can definitely look to cover in another call as we start to delve into going past the just getting started and creating your first project. So if any feedback like that, definitely want to hear it. We want to do kind of sessions that are going to help you progress using Teams Toolkit. So just get in touch.
Absolutely. That is a fantastic demo, fantastic messaging. Want to definitely thank Simriti, Cameron, and Gary for the awesome demos that they did today. Really useful, really informational stuff. And for everyone who took the time to attend today. And of course, highlighting that tomorrow is Ignite. Hope to see you on some virtual sessions as well as, in person, but I won't be in person. But, have a good time in person. The recording will be available 24 hours after today on our YouTube channel. Subscribe today if you have not already subscribed. Please follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev and M365 PNP. The next call will be on the 18th at 8 a.m. Pacific. And of course, all of the calls that we've done are available on AK.ms, M365/calls. Vesa, I don't know if you have anything in the last 2 minutes that you wanted to plug in before we sign off for today.
No, nothing at this point. The last link is for the downloading of the invites of all of the calls what we have. But yes, thank you, Fabian, for awesome hosting. Thank you for all of the presenters, and thank you for all of the attendees as well. And please keep the feedback coming. We're building all of the services for you, so your input is more than valuable. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Fabian.
Take care. Cheers.